I'm Derek. Oh, shitters. I'm Derek.
And I'm Jared, and this is Two Peas and a Pod.
Had to.
I think we're just extending this from Saturday right now.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. So, yeah, we just saw each other recently. What, 4 days? I'm no good at math. Let's call it 4 days ago.
Sure, 5, 3.
Yep.
Half a moon ago.
Nope. Probably like a seventh of a moon ago. Something like that.
Isn't it like what's the saying? 2 moons or 4? What is it? 2 moons and 4 score and 2 moons ago or some? What's the thing about?
I have no idea. I don't know what a score is.
Fortnite? I don't know. Whatever. Anyways, here we are.
But a moon's like 28 days, isn't it?
A full moon, if you're talking that. I was more looking at the saying.
Full cycle.
Yeah,
oh, okay.
Something like that.
Gotcha.
Waxing and waning of the moons. Oh, man.
Yeah.
We studied that in high school, I think, at some point.
Gotcha. You getting rain down over there?
Dude, it is pouring all day. So April, we had 8 inches total. And so far in May, I think we'll beat that. It's been raining off and on for literally a week.
I thought the saying was April showers brought May flowers, but it seems as though the showers still be here.
Yeah. May showers will bring June heat, probably.
Yeah. Super thick, muggy, fun stuff. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
How about you? You getting rain too, or is it just
Yeah, but I've got my garden in, so it's not so bad. You know what I mean? I've got a whopping like 10 things planted.
Yeah.
A few different kinds of peppers, some watermelons, cucumbers, tomatoes.
People keep telling me to do that, and I wish I had more time or wanted to invest more time. I think that'd be super cool. You know, like the cherry tomatoes or whatnot would be awesome.
Yeah, a little would go a long way, especially given like you'd be feeding yourself. And do you plan to do all the jarring and stuff at the end of it all?
Oh God, no.
Yeah, exactly. So like to preserve it in the end is a whole nether gamut of things.
Yeah.
Like, so if you make a bunch of tomatoes,
pickles. I make like pickles or something or whatnot. But
yeah, it's not so bad. But again, you're talking about, I don't know on pickles, but I know, like, for instance, we turn our tomatoes into sauces. And you're talking, I don't know, 4 to 6 hours a batch.
Yeah, that's a lot
of
commitment.
Yeah.
So in my busy life.
Yes, exactly.
Busy, not so busy. But anyways, what else is new with you, Derek? Anything crazy with the kids? They're almost out from school, or?
Yeah, school ends June 6th for my
late,
oldest.
No?
Yeah, that's Minnesota. They don't start until after Labor Day because they can't. So Labor Day is the last of the Minnesota State Fair, and then the Minnesota State Fair doesn't end so. So that's how they do it. They basically, it's the Minnesota State Fair happens, and then school can start.
Nice.
Okay. Yeah, that's kind of how they do it around here. I will say this, though, some kind of interesting things that I just heard about today in the news was about The Apprentice, the movie. You know anything about that?
I saw a ad for it at some point. I'm assuming Donald Trump, right? The movie came out. I looked it up. It was 62% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, well, so far it's only showed at like the Cannes Festival, I believe, Cannes Movie Festival, which is a place. So right now it doesn't have a USA distributor, and so it kind of gets shown at one of those so that somebody picks it up for the distribution of it. At least in the US, maybe it has some traction. I think for us, we care more about its relevance in the United States. Sebastian Stan plays an early age Trump. Sebastian Stan, you'll be familiar with him as Bucky from the Avengers. He plays the Winter Soldier.
Oh yeah, good looking dude.
So that's who you got playing Trump, and it's kind of his early days when he had like a he had a mentor. I don't remember what that mentor's name is. Roy Cohn, I believe, or something like that. Anyway, Roy Cohn kind of mentored him in his early things and stuff like that. And so that's kind of the time period that it follows. It's during his first wife and everything like that. But one of the things that I found super interesting about this whole thing is Abbasi, the director of it, said, making a movie centered on Trump and argued that films need to be relevant again, he explained. there is no nice metaphorical way to deal with the rising wave of fascism. There's only the banal way. There's only one way of dealing with this wave on its own terms and on its own level. But I think the problem with the world is that good people have been quiet for too long. So I think it's time we make movies relevant. It's time we make movies political again. How do you feel about that statement?
I feel we brought it up a lot on this podcast. That seems a little 1930s, 1940-esque to me.
In what way?
Well, so we talk about like the Nazi era, right? Through Germany and Hitler. A lot of the stuff was shown was all about like movies and movie theaters was like directed towards all of that those political movies over in Germany. It was all propaganda.
Supporting fascism.
Correct.
Yeah.
So that seems a little concerning. I think movies are more for fun and for escape for an hour, 2 hours, something that, you've had a rough day or a rough week and you want to go ahead and enjoy a movie that doesn't necessarily have to be real, and an uplifting or a suspenseful movie or whatever you want to watch. I worry that it's going to ruin what movies should be about, I guess.
Yeah.
That's how I feel about it. I don't know. I love watching movies, but I think that'd ruin it for me.
Yeah, and I'm kind of with you. I'm like, it's time. I read it's time to make movies political again, and I'm saying to myself, I feel like they've been more political than I can remember.
Right, with hidden agendas in movies.
Correct.
Right? They may not come out and say it, but yeah.
It's like, for instance, this is just a very noticeable thing.
Yes.
The number of queer individuals in America, I believe, is less than 10%. I'm not 100%.
Statistically, not an opinion. It's a statistic. You can look it up.
Correct. And I'm just saying I believe that. I don't know that that's necessarily a true statistic, but the last time I've seen statistics, I believe that was somewhere in the realm of where it was, right?
Right.
However, you'll watch a movie or a show with a cast, and 1 in 3 people will be queer.
Right.
And so it seems, even though, again, if it benefits the story, I have no problem with it. I think that the idea is, though, that it's kind of, it doesn't necessarily benefit the story a lot of times, and it's the attempt to normalize something. And again, I'm just speaking on how it seems like it's being pushed onto somebody, right? Because that's just not the case. Now, you could say, well, the whole issue with like why you see those things in older, and because that's the other thing too, you'll see it in movies about 200-300 years ago where those individuals would have been killed, and it's like, yeah, well, that was happening. It was just, it just wasn't talked about. So that's why you always see them kind of like sneaking around and doing it. It's like, we live in an era where more information, but even so, like now, like people will catch you. Like Community was much bigger then. Like we know now that human beings' ability to keep secrets is like non-existent.
Right. But also too, I think they're doing it, not to play devil's advocate or anything, but I agree with you in a lot of ways. But I think also they're doing it more even with stuff that would have happened 200 or 300 years ago, because nowadays it's common, it's known, it's not a big deal. Back then it was, so you never would have seen that stuff way back then. So if today's society felt the way they do now 200 years ago, you probably would have seen that in those references in those movies 200 years ago. So they're putting it in there because it should have been fine, but it wasn't on all those. But I think I agree with you that if it doesn't support the storyline, don't put it in there, especially with movies that have been translated from like books or true stories. Right. So when you look at like the Marvel comics, the last couple shows, they've incorporated those kinds of modern topics, like having 2 moms or 2 dads, and they've incorporated that in the comic movie, when in the comic it wasn't that way. So it doesn't support the storyline. So now it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So that's where like I kind of.
Go ahead.
No, you're good. That's really what I want to.
Okay, I was gonna say like the Miss Marvel one I found, was it Miss Marvel? It was in the multiverse. There was a girl. Her name, what was her name? It was like America Gonzalez or something like that, which I thought
Yeah. It was
they
in the
were
Doctor
okay.
it was in the Doctor Strange
Yes.
multiverse.
Yes.
And then
She
yeah.
was Her name was American Gonzalez. And so she was we have a we have a political issue at the southern border going
Yeah.
on where it's not perspective based. I don't know,
Yeah.
there's a biases, there's differencing of opinions about it, right?
Right, right.
So what do? They have this girl named American Gonzalez, who's a
To drive,
Spanish
yeah.
lead actor, to try to, yes, try to, and it's just this subtle thing. And then on top of that, she has two moms.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's just a lot of things that they're the little subtleties, but like you said, it just totally deviates from it.
Yeah.
I think there was a gay Superman here recently, or like a non-binary Superman that was made. This is in the comic book world now, not necessarily,
Oh,
or
gotcha.
maybe if
Yeah.
it's even a cartoon. But
Yeah.
I think there is a ton of political stuff going on in entertainment. So
Yeah.
this idea of it's time to make movies political again, we're all like, I'm like, let's not.
Yeah.
Let's not do that. I feel like we need to tone it back. It's been too much.
Right. Well, even like on SNL, every weekend update
Yeah.
is all something about a political governor or the president or a cabinet member, and it just seems like one in every 5 stories you hear or see come through your newsfeed is about crises and war and political stuff. It's like there's actually a song I believe by Jordan Davis where if like it's called like Good News Sells, like if good news sells, and it basically talks about how imagine if like you would hear these good things, how much better life would be, and how much more positive people would be in life if you had the better stories versus everything that's so negative. So, but
Is that a
yeah,
combination though of human, like, people want to hear the bad stuff so it makes them feel better about their lives? Even though, like, let's be honest, if you're an American, just period, you just live in this country. Even if
yeah.
you're
If you're a
broke,
citizen, or yeah,
even if you're homeless in this country, you're
yeah,
living better than a wealthy person in Africa or a king from 3, 4, 500 years ago.
right. You have more amenities and more opportunities. Yeah, I agree.
You'll be fed, right?
Right.
You're gonna get food somewhere.
But I don't know that I agree with that. I think media sells. People want to hear what's going on. They want to hear a headline, and people want to be the first to report it. So I think it turns into how much wow can I report to draw viewership.
Yeah, shock factor.
Right.
Media.
Like if you have Fox News reporting firemen saved 20 people from a fire in New York, or there's a story where there's a border crisis and 1,000 kids have been separated from their parents, which one are they going to air? Right, they're going to air
border
the one
crisis.
Correct, right? So
But they should air both of them.
right,
Because honestly,
but
I'd care more about the firefighters than the other instance.
Right.
I mean, for all we know, those 1,000 kids got separated from coyotes that were going to bring them in for sex trafficking.
Right. You just don't know the whole story, but
right.
It's yeah. Back to the whole movie thing. I hope that doesn't take hold. I hope that doesn't gain some traction. I'd be interesting to see. I read Donald Trump's book.
Really?
2 or 3 years ago about his small loan, for $1 million, and how he struggled as a real estate agent, just making some pretty big dicey moves and ended up paying off, and kind of his mentality behind that. I mean, and I've said this before, I'll say it again. People see Donald Trump obviously as like a tax evasion artist, a con man, a sexual predator, whatever that is. Most of his life before this whole presidency took out, he is kind of part of a true American story about coming from, building your own empire of business. And, I remember one of the things was he had investors coming to look at the progress of one of his buildings, and he was having trouble with getting timelines drawn. So he hired a bunch of people to start moving a bunch of dirt back and forth to make it look like they were making progress to impress the investors, when in reality nothing was happening. But he did that, and they invested more money, and he was able to build the building. Yeah, like, it was just kind of a cool. I mean,
dude,
that kind of stuff, man. I mean,
You
he's
gotta
a
be
smart man.
smart.
Yeah.
Yeah. You gotta be smart to be in to be that wealthy, to be in business. Jim Rohn once said, if somebody ever gives you $1 million, best you become a millionaire quickly. So you gotta keep the money.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. You can blow through $1 million pretty quick.
Yep. And that's the idea, is like if you just get given it, you have no method of making it. Like so you'll spend it, you'll consume and not produce, right? And so then
Right.
therefore it'll go away and you'll no longer be a millionaire anymore anyway. Um One of the other things here, just real quick on this apprentice, what do you think the likelihood that it gets a tag of based on a true story? Because
um.
Trump is suing him that it's a
w-
false story. One of the guys that gave money, Dan Snyder, you might be familiar with him, Washington Commanders former owner, is suing
Yeah.
because he invested in it thinking that it was going to be a little bit more of a neutral and felt like it was very disparaging. Now, I'll be honest, I, as Trump, would not probably want Dan Snyder suing on my behalf in some way, because Dan Snyder, in my opinion, is kind of a pile of garbage human being. But then again, I don't really know. I only know what the media tells me, and I believe all media has a biases. Like, I don't care even if you say you're neutral. You're probably not neutral.
Yeah. Yeah. That. I guess I don't know enough about the movie to know. Like, is it? Did they interview Donald Trump? Did they pull off like what? How did they base the movie off of? That's
Just
what I would
just
understand.
snippets and historical claims. So, like, for instance, his former wife. One of the things in here is Ivana, who did pass away. It says in the movie she makes the claim that Trump raped her.
Mm.
And she said in 2015 that that claim was made totally without merit and taken completely out of context. Because that was
Yeah.
like, she made that comment during the divorce, and so you almost wonder if she was like,
Yeah.
he's
Trying
raping me, or you know what I mean, like,
just to try and sway
or taking me over. A better term might have been like, he's taken me to the barber.
cleaners.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, there you go. Like,
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
like that. Like, is that what she was meaning by it?
Yeah.
And so, because she said she had a good relationship with him towards the end. I mean, I remember watching an interview of her, and she was like, I'm good with him."
We just went our
And
separate
stuff like,
ways, wanted different
yeah,
things, whatever that
yeah.
looks like.
Well, I think there was some infidelity there, and it caused rifts and issues.
Sure.
Um.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I don't. I think someone will try and plug it in there. I think someone will try and do that because everything's more interesting if it's based off a true story, right? Every movie
yeah.
it becomes more more attractive if it's like, oh, what actually happened? What do they got? And you look on based on a true story, like Moneyball.
Mm-hmm.
That
Mm,
movie, that was huge popularity because it's based off a true story.
yeah.
Those kinds of big blockbusters. So
Yeah. Well, a movie with about Tim Ballard. He was the CIA agent that went down south and tried to save kids from sex trafficking and stuff like
yeah,
that. For
yeah,
instance, that movie has, spoiler alert, that movie has both the children being found, but that's not true. Only they're still looking for the daughter. The son was the only one that was found, that put him onto the trafficking ring that Tim Ballard
yeah,
decided to get himself involved in. So, like, there, based on a true story, half true, but also there was, like, they've also saved hundreds of other kids from child sex trafficking. It's just that when he went to that camp to find that girl and did, like, this whole undercover scheme, he never actually did get her or find her. So it's like
yeah.
that says based on a true story.
So that brings me to a question for you: is if they tag something based on a true story, or as you see a lot more recently, if books are translated to movies,
Mm-hmm.
should they be like in line with what the book or the story is? Can they fabricate a couple things? Can they extend the truth a little? What do you think about those? Because how many movies have those kinds of things in it?
I just think that if something says based on a true story, I don't know. I almost wanted to put an asterisk on it.
Yeah,
Like, based on a true
like
story, do your own research. Because, like, there was that movie Turismo
mm-hmm.
or Gran Turismo. It was Was that a movie? Yeah, and it was about the
Yeah,
kid
Gran
that
Turismo. It was a movie based off the F1 Formula Racer.
yeah, correct. So for instance, that has it seem like he's the first person to ever enter the program via that way. He was like the third person to ever enter the program that way.
Yeah.
It shows like accidents and him winning a ton. He only won like one major ever, and he did podium at this really big race, which was the climax of the whole thing, but he got third. And they do have him not winning it, I think, but they also don't not have him losing, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. Like
I think they have a cliffhanger or something. I remember watching it like a month ago.
yeah,
But
yeah. So it's just like I just feel like people when maybe this is where it needs to happen is just people that talk about these movies when you do see based on a true story. I feel like you should not buy it wholesale. You should certainly be doing your own research
right.
on those kind of things because I love doing that. Anytime I see based on a true story while I'm watching the movie, I almost pull up my phone and just
I always yeah.
I like to just like look up people and be like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, so this person's real, and I
Well,
kind of like to know how true it is.
Right. Like Wolf of Wall Street, right? Isn't that based on Jordan
Yeah.
Belfort? But like
Yep.
how much of that was exaggerated? I mean, I'm sure the partying and stuff happened and all that, but like
Yeah.
what what were the breaks? The climaxes in the movie, did they correlate to real life? You know?
Yeah. When I think he was interviewed because he became a like a motivational speaker after the fact, and so I think he was in
Yeah.
his own like public. He had like a public persona
Yeah.
afterwards, or so I
Right.
think they reached out to him. Whereas with like for instance this movie, probably no involvement of Trump whatsoever in the creation of this movie.
Right.
With the one that I was talking about with the Underground Railroad, I know Tim Ballard sat with Angel Studios and actually worked on that one.
Yeah.
In the instance of Wolf of Wall Street, like I said, Jordan Belfort, I believe he was engaged in the making of that movie, and so he would probably be like, "Yeah, I was doing a lot of Quaaludes, bro. So many Quaaludes."
Great song, by the way. Great song. Yeah, I think if you want to tag it, even if you have an asterisk or not, I think if you want to tag it as true story, I think it should really line up with factual basis because we are, I would say, informed citizens.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that watch it and take it for face value, and they're like, "Oh, that's what happened. God, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Or, oh, that's horrible." There's not. I don't know a statistic, but like I feel like there's a lot of people that are like, "Wow, that was a true story. Holy cow, all that really happened." When it didn't. Like, isn't Paranormal Activity based on a true story?
Oh, really? I have no idea. That's kind of
I-
crazy. I did not enjoy those movies. I did watch, I think, the first two. I don't really. That's like the scariest movie I've ever watched. Like I don't watch horror at all.
Paranormal Activity.
And I watched 1 and 2, and I did not. Those were freaky, dude. Those are freaky movies. Those are the types of movies I don't like watching.
It was not based on a true story, but it was inspired by a real life event. So it didn't say true story, but based off events or real life events. I mean, that's saying that someone got thrown across the room and no one knows what happened.
I want to know what the real event was.
Right, like how over the top or extra was it?
What stage of schizophrenia were they in?
Right, or was it a normal person? But like,
well, maybe you could have a schizophrenic episode. I don't know.
But like, you put based off of real events, and people are like, "Oh my god, that really happened. The house got destroyed." Yada yada yada. It sends the wrong message, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah. So I think they shouldn't put it unless if X amount of percentage is true. But I'm not a filmmaker. I don't make millions of dollars or produce $1 million or $1 billion movies, so I don't have a right to say it.
Yeah. I do think we have the right to talk about it, though, and like I said, like maybe it is in these types of forums where you just tell people, "Yo, do some research," because that stuff is probably mostly not true. Like, there's definitely stretches and fabrications. I shouldn't even say mostly, but there's lots of chunks that when you actually read the true story, you'll be like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah.
Like how often even like just look at books that get made into movies, right? How often do people say, "Oh, the books are so much better than the movies"? And
every
it's like,
time.
Yeah, every time. But it's like, and how? But people will complain too. They're like, "This is not how the book went."
Yeah. Right. I personally am I used to read a lot. Still do sometimes. I've seen quite a bit of movies that have been books or were books that are now movies or made into movies. And I will tell you, your imagination is probably the best tool you have as a person, where you can create your own movie in your head reading these things. And when they put it on a screen, no matter how close of a translation they get, it's not the same. I have to agree. Like Harry Potter, right? Classic one. And there's a lot of controversy about that with J.K. Rowling and stuff now, but those were like the huge movies, and the books were great. You know, I started when I was 8 years old. The first four came out. Loved them, and they came in the movies. And the movies were really good. But if I had to get rid of one forever and never ever never read it or see it again, I would pick the movies every time.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So,
I don't read a whole lot of nonfiction.
I do. I read a lot. I read motivational books and stuff, but I read a lot of nonfiction because, as I stated earlier, like it's an escape.
Yeah.
You know, it's not real. You know, it's not real. And it's just something where you just put your mind on hold for an hour, 2 hours a day, or a week, or whatever how often you read, and just go into something that's not real and kind of gets you a little bit relaxation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I would agree with that. Like there was one, I read one book that I can remember that was nonfiction and was like a spy novel of sorts. I mean, it was short, and this was also when I was like in maybe like 6th grade. That's how long it's been since I've read like any type of nonfiction. I read Bo Knows Bo, which was a biography, biography and autobiography. I don't know, it was like a pseudo between the two about Bo Jackson. So arguably one of the greatest athletes of all time. And then I have, just looking at my books, the 48 Laws of Power. How to read a book. Great book to read. 4 different levels of reading. Very dry, but it is actually worth reading because it really teaches you how to be an intentional reader. That's kind of the stuff that it goes over. Extreme Ownership, Jocko Willink, Multi-Unit Leadership, Tony Robbins, Money Master the Game, Dave Ramsey. They're like, just all of it is just that's what I read. And I mean, I've started reading one book in the last 2 years. I listened to some books, but I haven't even read any of these lately.
Audiobooks are like the new thing. I hear a lot of people reading or listening to audiobooks like in their car on the way to work, on a trip. I'll tell you, I would fall asleep. I don't know. I can't do it. I tried it, man. I'd rather listen to music or
what kind of book did you listen to, though? What kind of book did you listen to?
It was a motivational book for work. We had to read it before one of our meetings or something, and so I was like, people do this a lot. Let me try it, and I listened to it, and I probably got, I don't know, first couple chapters. I was like, nah, I'll just read it. But I grew up reading all the time, so I think it took away from the fun of me actually reading, because that's what I was so used to. So I think people who don't like to read, it's definitely a good alternative. Or hate looking at a page and stuff, but I do enjoy it. I also like the actual paper. Like I like opening up a new book and reading the pages and turning the pages. I can't get on the Kindle trend either, where you swipe or you turn the page by swiping up or left. Like I want a hard physical copy.
Yeah.
So
well, you should try those. Like I said, I mentioned to you before, those Eragon. You said you liked that book.
Yeah.
Or group of books.
Yeah.
You should try one of those fictions on Audible. Might enjoy it. I'm just saying, you get the little windshield time out there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I
give one of those a try.
I have to actually drive to Maple Grove tomorrow for a meeting, so I'll be in the area for a day. Yeah. I could have stayed the night tonight, and I decided to wake up at 5:30 and go be there at 11:30 tomorrow and drive home after. So I get a good 8-hour drive round trip to be there for 4 hours.
Hey, maybe this 14-hour long book will get you halfway there. Yeah.
So but anyways, I think moral of the story I think we talked about is just go out and enjoy movies.
Yeah.
And read a book.
Yeah, reading a book. I do think reading a book is Great. From a lot of the ways that you even said it. So like I absorb a lot of content video wise, and I believe that when you listen to somebody tell you how things are, you kind of adopt their ideas wholesale. Whereas when you read ideas and
Hmm.
somebody has them, you're kind of in a more of a free thought mentality. And
Yeah.
so you can kind of formulate, like they're giving you information and you get to formulate your own ideas about it. And
Right.
especially if you get into like a level of syntopical reading where you're reading multiple books on varying on the same topic but by like multiple art authors with different viewpoints on that topic, you're going to come with a more rich viewpoint of your own. Like you're not like, if I just read 6 books from Dave Ramsey, well you could be like, well you're a Dave Ramsey apostle. Whereas if you read like a Dave Ramsey plus, I don't even know who, I'm just picking him because that's the name that picks out up there, but it's like you can have a more rich viewpoint and you can kind of call it your own actually.
I think I would agree because also really good speakers know how to motivate and charge a crowd. The way they
Hmm.
enunciate words or phrases or how they word things and translate through topics, I think has an effect on people. When you're reading a text, it's your mind, your voice in your head, reading through texts, and you get to interpret it your own way versus how someone enunciates certain facts or timelines. They really good speakers can do that really well and motivate a
Yeah.
crowd. So I would agree with
Yep.
that. So,
Yeah.
but
Create focal points of like a single word or something like that.
yep, yep.
Yep.
So, well, Derek, like I said, I think for listeners out there, go read a book, listen to a book. Don't jump on the bandwagon unless you so choose of a political propaganda movie. Just go enjoy movies.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
until next time,
I'm Derek.
and I'm Jared, and this is Two Peas and a Pot.
Peace.